I worked at Intel for about 10 years. And when you're in that bubble and you are just working those 10, 12-hour days, you're thinking about being successful in that job. And you might be thinking about the next job, but you're not talking with other people about what it's going to take to get there. And the first thing she said to me as we chatted was, I don't know what my UVP is. So I created a lesson called Write and Pitch Your Own Job Description.
Welcome back to another episode of the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast. And each week we have 2 videos for you. One is just a 5 to 10 minute episode to help you elevate in your career, your compensation, and your confidence every week. And then we also do our special guests every single week. And today is no different. You are going to be blown away by what this guest shares today. We have Gina Riley. She is a career transition coach, a LinkedIn top voice, and the creator of Career Velocity. I can't wait for y'all to hear all about this. She's a UMAP certified coach, executive search and interview skills trainer, and a powerhouse speaker and workshop facilitator. Let's welcome Gina to the show. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you so much, Candace. I cannot wait to have this conversation today with you.
Yes, same here, same here. When I saw the term career velocity, first of all, it's phenomenal. And I was thinking, why did I think of this? Quite honestly, we've thought of it, but the way you've packaged it, I think is amazing. And I think it addresses where so many professionals are feeling stuck despite being smart, skilled, and experienced. So let's start with the truth, because we know that being qualified is just not enough in today's workforce. So let's address why so many high performers are plateauing and how does career velocity shift the game for them?
I think a lot of people reach kind of that midpoint in their career and they start to think, okay, I know I can do more, I can be more, I want that next level of leadership, whatever that is. And sometimes it's actually just about wanting to make more pay. Because let's face it, as we get older, our families grow, we have different priorities that financially. And so we get to a place where we want more. And the reason why we get stuck is because we haven't been attending to the skill building and the relationship building that we need to do in order to get, I love the word velocity. It makes me feel and think of movement, to get that movement in our career. What do you think, Candace?
Yeah, I love that you said movement, because I think what sometimes professionals do when they're looking to make that career pivot or looking to get promoted at work or whatever the case may be, they
Mm-hmm.
seek after clarity first, or they want to get a well-built strategy before they even get started. And again, to your point, velocity is movement. Sometimes you got to go ahead and move first, and all of it ties together as you go. The clarity comes with that, because those are key
Mm-hmm.
elements of success. So I love the way you talked about it as movement, because we got to get started. That's the first step. Get started.
That's right. And I think that movement and strategy and mentorship kind of are this overlapping set of concentric circles, if you will, because in our careers, if we intentionally build relationships with mentors and hopefully have a sponsor in our career to help move us forward, while we're also being super strategic about the conversations about what do I need to get to that next level? Or what do I need to make that pivot internally or externally? These are people that have gone before you that can be informative of making those career moves. So that is strategy, but it's in tandem with getting the information you need as you go. And a lot of people just wait until they feel stuck. And then all of a sudden they're thinking, I should know how to make this career move. And I don't know how. But Candace, as you and I both know, we're not taught this in school. We're not taught how to create a resume. We're not taught to create a career transition strategy. We're not taught that mentors are part of the key to our success. And we're certainly not taught that networking is the most important aspect of making a career transition.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. One of the things that we say often, I think Jamila started it, is that we were not put on this earth to do things alone. And sometimes because, just some narratives or some things that people suggested to us that, I've got nobody's coming to save me and I've got to do this by myself, then we take that as law. and we fear reaching out to our community. We don't know what the next step is to reach out to sponsors and mentors. So I definitely want to kind
Mhm.
of pivot a little bit and ask you about that, because I recorded an episode about sponsorship and mentorship probably about 2 years ago. But I still see it as a challenge, whether I'm interacting with clients or just networking in the field. Why do you think that? What do you think is the barrier to why, even though we're giving this advice and saying, get a sponsor, get a mentor, what do you
Mhm.
think is the barrier to us actually doing it? And how do we remove that barrier?
You know, I think initially it's because we're not thinking about it. We're not thinking of it as important because I'm sure you've been there before as well. My early career was corporate. I worked at Intel for about 10 years. And when you're in that bubble and you are just working those 10, 12-hour days, you're thinking about being successful in that job. And you
Mm-hmm.
might be thinking about the next job, but you're not talking with other people about what it's going to take to get there. And you said something really key, the quote about, not getting wait to get tapped on the shoulder, etc. I say don't wait to get plucked out of obscurity. You must make your intentions known. Talk about what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start talking about what you want, it's usually with managers. It could be adjacent managers and skip level. Those are the people that can become your sponsors that inform you about the baby steps, the side steps, whatever that is. And maybe sometimes it's external learning. Maybe you need another degree. Maybe you need a certification. Maybe you need some kind of leadership experience to get tapped on the shoulder. But you generally are not going to be tapped on the shoulder unless you're really making yourself known.
Yes, love it. Visibility is the key word that's sticking out there, and I love how you said, "Talk about what you want." And I think some struggle to even define or figure out what they want. They don't know it. And I love your saying that you can't be discovered if you're not defined. So let's
Right.
shift into like UVP, because you got to know what you want. We got to figure out how to talk about what we want, how to define what that is. And that's the process of that, is like establishing what your unique value proposition is. How can professionals start uncovering that today?
Uh, Thanks for the lead in. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. So as you and I talked about before we got on, I just authored a book. It's called Qualified Isn't Enough. Develop your story, land the interview, and win the job. And the reason why it starts with develop your story is the way that you start this process. And my chapters 1 through 5 are going to the micro of how you build the UVP, unique value proposition. I personally start with a profile called the UMAP. Other people use other things. The UMAP gives me people's top 5 strengths from StrengthsFinder. That's how they apply their natural talents to the job, their values, why they do what they do, their skills, what motivates them and what burns them out. And then the 4th assessment in the UMAP is a personality assessment called the Holland. It is careers related. So that is akin to doing a DISC, MBTI, Myers-Briggs type indicator. Those are personality assessments. And in my work with executives, the personality assessment is interesting. It is not the leader. I don't need to know that someone's an introvert or an extrovert. I don't need to know those personality traits. The strengths finder, how you apply your talent. Do you relate to people? Are you a deep thinker? Are you an executor, etc.? And then what do you value? And those are the things that start to make up the human story about you. Then I look at people's leadership approach. That's my chapter 2. How do you lead people during times of change and transition? If you're not if your title isn't leader, you lead from your seat on the bus. How do you lead? The third thing I do is I uncover people's career's theme, or that thread throughout their entire career, by unpacking the career and then helping reflect back those themes and patterns. So now you start to see yourself, it's very empowering, as a unique contributor. Because don't you find when you work with people, they're like, I don't know what makes me unique and special. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I promise you, everyone has it, even if you're an 18-year-old just starting college or getting in the workforce, you're a graduate at 22 plus, or if you're like me and you're in your mid 50s.
I love it. I love it. You said so much. I was like burning my notebook over here with notes. And what I like to when I'm coaching someone on when they don't know what their UVP is or what they're strong at or what they don't like, you got to go back on a journey to understand where have you been and what did you learn while you were there. And from my own personal journey, I was able to backtrack and just kind of take a look back at when I was 8 years old. That was when actually my leadership started, when I was directing choirs at church. And so when I think about that and then I go, okay, well then what did I do next? And I walk through this entire journey of starting leadership early in corporate America and just how fast my career went. Then I can, say, all right, so leadership is it. Leadership is what I've
Mhm.
been doing. And I have all these evidence. I call them receipts. Go back and grab your receipts of the things that you've done to discover the value that you've been able to offer to either yourself or to those you've been surrounded by along the way. So I love the way that you talked about that, and it's a common challenge that I think many face of not really able to pinpoint what they're good at and what they like.
Oh, it's so true. I'm working with a global CFO right now, worked at the same company for over 30 years, and is a candidate right now for other global companies as a CFO. And the first thing she said to me as we chatted was, "I don't know what my UVP is." And I'm like, I can't wait to unpack that, because once she embodies who she is, how she does it, the results she knows how to get those threads that make up the tapestry of her career, the storytelling, then that's the springboard into talking about those results, into being able to answer, tell me about yourself, right? And into being able to do those. I use SOAR stories. Other people use STAR, CAR, PAR, but explaining the situation and the obstacles and the challenges and the results that one took. Now we have something to talk about. Now we have pride in what we have to offer.
Love it, love it. Springboard. The springboard is the go. Is and I love the SOAR acronym as well. I don't know if you saw me write that down. And so you
Yeah.
talked about when it's discovering your UVP is strengths, values, skills, and personality. And when going
Mhm.
back to those skills, I like the way you tied it to what motivates you and what burns
Mhm.
you out. And I know we didn't plan to talk about this, but I thought it was very interesting that there's a step in your process where they identify in advance what could potentially burn them out. Because that burnout, even though it's probably an overly used word, it's happening and it's actually
Okay.
causing people not to make the movement. So talk to me a
Okay.
little bit about why you incorporated that. Like what made you decide to put what let's identify early what's going to burn us out so we can avoid that burnout in our career.
Absolutely. And for those who are listening to the podcast, I find this to be really powerful for those early career and mid career. As I work with executives, they know the skills that burn them out, and they know the skills they use or apply, that they love and excite them. So I use my own example. I I really hate balancing my checkbook. The skill of having to balance a checkbook is one that I know how to do, but I don't enjoy it. It takes me longer because there's nothing about it that lights my fire. So there's things that we do in our jobs, and maybe it's administrative tasks. Maybe it's having to be too salesy. So when I'm working with um, my clients and they're maybe evaluating two different offers, I'm like, let's go look at your values. Can you live out your values in that job, whatever those are? Do you have any red flags? And then let's look at the burnout skills. Do you have to do that more than 20% of your time? And if the answers start to come back in a negative light, we have something to talk about, because that might be the pros and cons list that you need to set up for yourself to choose one job over another.
Love it, love it. So I think that identification process is definitely a great one. And sometimes they may do that pros and cons list and identify things that they don't like, but sometimes it's just part of the job. We even as
Amen.
coaches, as professionals, like there's things that I have to do that I don't necessarily prefer to do, but I have to do them. How would you
Mhm.
advise someone to embrace that, but be strategic about the way that they move in their career to not have those things still burn them out, even though they have to do them?
Like you said, there's stuff we all have to do. And I think it comes back to contracting. So, whoever you're working for, you lay out that job description and you have an honest conversation with them and you say, look, these are the things that play to my strengths, and I'm going to be like hitting that real hard. You're going to see everything that I've got going toward that. And I absolutely understand this job's going to require, this other percentage of my time. And I can do it. It's not my sweet spot. And you're not going to hear me whining and complaining. But if there are ways that you can help me do that more efficiently, do it better, do it faster, find resources, contract with other peers that love doing that kind of thing, I think we're in business.
That's good. That's good. That could be applied inside your career and as an entrepreneur. And it's about how do you use your army of allies that are around you. And I love how you talked about let's just have the conversation up front with the prospective employer or with your current boss and say these are the things that I feel really good about, and these are the things I don't necessarily like to do. I'm gonna leverage this person to help me with it. And I ever think back on our careers, me, Jamila, and Alicia, that was our job. We were responsible for making sure that we hired people not only that could do the job well, but that helped build a well gelled team and people who did the
Mm-hmm.
things that we didn't necessarily love doing. So I hired
Mm-hmm.
someone. I'm great at analytics, but I don't love it, right? Like I'm great at it. So I got to make sure I've got an analytical person on my team. So I had to contract or
Completely.
hire that person that would love doing spreadsheets. Again, I'm really good at it, but it doesn't necessarily give me joy. So I got to contract that out. I love your approach to that.
Exactly. And what that plays back to is your natural strengths from the Strengths Finder. If you've got someone who's like a deep thinker who really enjoys that in combination with their motivated skills, the skill is there. Now you have a person that intersects really well with that. I mean, you have good data that says you're going to enjoy this job. I do have a caveat for you, Candace, though. I'm affiliated with an executive search firm called Talents Group. And I don't do executive search anymore because the coaching business takes a lot of my time. I do interview skills training for them in corporate. One of my peers is currently leading a search for a chief of staff for a president or a CEO of a huge global company. And 50% of the job for this chief of staff, every chief of staff is different, every profile is different. Half of it is being an EA, an executive assistant, which is not necessarily the norm. And then the rest is herding cats. It's all the program management for the executive staff. So you need to have a skill set that will not only overlap, you need to want to do the EA. And so she's talking with all these job seekers, and particularly those who are earlier career who could do the job. They're like, I just really don't want to do that EA part. Can we offload that? The CEO needs, this is the job they went to market with. You have to want the job. If you don't want that job, you're not trying to talk a recruiter into eliminating 50% of the job. So I would say read the room and pay attention to like what that job really is, and you got to want it or keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in that, great example, by the way, and even in that, I think the task that we have to give ourselves as professionals in these roles is how do we make that part that we don't like, how do we make it more attractive for ourselves? How can you make that easier? Is there a particular element that you could be more planful about or more strategic in the way you approach it so it's not a burden that you have to do it every
Yeah.
day? So it boils down to choice, honestly, Gina. You have to choose whether or not you're going to embrace that or not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it, and I think this is a great segue to another concept that you talk about because we see these positions in these roles, and then we become married to the exact job description, or that being how we define our career. And you coach
Mm-hmm.
professionals to stop waiting for that next job post and start creating roles that fit their strengths. So we talked a little bit about that. But what does the
Mm-hmm.
process look like, if you could give a few steps, the process look like of creating that role that is best for
Mm-hmm.
you and how they can apply it in their career today?
Yes, thank you for asking. So, as I started coaching people a few years into my coaching program, I was really honing in on the fact that some of these people could move up or make a lateral move in their own companies, but the roles didn't exist, and or you had a job seeker who was trying to find their marketplace fit. Both have the same challenge, which is identifying a place where their Swiss Army knife of tools will fit where they can thrive. So I created a lesson called Write and Pitch Your Own Job Description. And so it's a methodical way of backing into creating that JD as you and I have when we're recruiting. So, how do we do that? Well, first we start with what is it that we want to be doing in the first place, right? So, you go out into the market, you grab a few job descriptions that have that kind of hybrid of all the things that you want, and start to lay out what are the top 10 bullet points. If you were writing your JD, what are the top 10 things you would be executing on? And remember, when we write those job description bullets, they're not all task based. What are the outcomes? If I do this job, this will happen for you. If I do this, this will happen for you. And if you can't answer that and you're just talking about tasks, you're not speaking at a higher level, because the people who hire you or create a job for you, they want to know they're going to get an outcome. Right. You're offering a business solution. They need to be ready to buy it. And they're not just buying paper pushing. They need an outcome. You need to explain that. So create the executive summary for the JD, create your top 10 bullet points, then create a list of the technical or functional skills for that job. So if you're in marketing, what are the key technical things you need to know from your education and your experience? And then the other column is what are the communication skills, relationship skills, and leadership skills. So those are like the communication, influencing, being strategic, whatever those things are. Now you have something to go to market with. You first identify your UVP, you apply it to the JD that you're creating around your toolkit, then you internally network to sort of sell yourself, and or you start having networking conversations with an open heart and an open mind. You ask people what their problems and challenges are, and then you come back and say, I think I could solve that problem for you. Here's a job description that I think matches your need.
The only thing I regret right now, Gina, is that I don't have a bell to sit here and hit, because you rung the bell with that. Such intentionality in the approach there. I hope that whoever's watching this rewinds and like write that down if you didn't, because I love the way that you even strung it to, we still have to network. We still have to have great communication skills. We have to be comfortable showcasing and displaying what we want, what we're good at, but you got to define it first. You have dropped the mic and I need to find my place again. Thank you for sharing that approach. And I love just the transparency around when you present yourself to others, because we get to some interviews and we think, well, we've got to fit the mold, but you're the consultant and the employer is the client. So you've got to make sure that you're communicating these things openly and boldly. And I love that you said with an open heart and an open mind. So thank you for sharing that.
You are welcome. Basically, what you're doing is you're putting on a consulting hat and you're going out and you're fact finding. Yes. And you're using frameworks that help you get that data so that you know that you're applying the right tools to solve their problem. And so that's why I call people, you as an individual, you and I are a business solution. We offer a solution, and you have to be thinking like the people who are buying. Is it worth paying you the salary that you want to provide that solution? And we know companies aren't loyal to us anymore, so we need to be strategic about what it is that we're trying to angle for.
Yeah, love it, love it. I appreciate you saying too, and I think many will appreciate it as well, that companies aren't loyal to us anymore. It doesn't mean that companies are bad. It just
No.
means that they've got to also move at the speed of the workforce as well. So for the person who is um, used to being loyal to the organization and that's kept them stuck, you just said that, and hopefully it unlocks somebody to understand that companies aren't loyal to us. How do you, if you could give one tip on how someone knowing that continues to prioritize themselves? I know you've shared a lot, but what's one like groundbreaking thing they can do to keep themselves at the top of the priority list and stay loyal to themselves?
I like how you flipped the script, and instead of saying be loyal to a company, because you can be an amazing worker and you can give and you can get, I mean, most of us, there's more achievers than anything on the Strengths Finder. There's, right? It's not the number one strength. We all want to achieve. Um, I think that centering on our UVP and not forgetting who we are is the most grounding part of the entire career transition journey that we have. Because unless you, like I said before, like embody and truly embrace everything you have to offer and step forward with humility with that as well, but saying, I know what I can do. The reason people feel stuck is they get to a place that they wonder, why have I not been tapped on the shoulder? Waiting to get plucked out of obscurity, and then feeling really mired down in a machine that they feel like, that funnel that they can't get out of. But as we said at Intel all through the years, you own your own career. No, nobody's coming to save you.
Nobody's coming to save you. Alicia Wade, one of my co-founders, says that all the time. And what I took away from what you said is, which is a common challenge. Even I sometimes still do this. We're trying to solve the problem of us, and we're not focused on humbly and confidently presenting the things that we do well inside the workforce. So I appreciate your approach to it. I appreciate your just your insight that gives people confidence to go out and ensure that they can showcase their gifts, skills, talents to the world, but then also be specific about what value do you add to the workforce that you must be hired for, either as an employee, as a contractor, as a consultant, whatever that looks like. Listen, I know you have a book that is coming out as well, and I would love for you to talk more about that. So tell us where we can find you. How can we get a hold or be prepared for your book and all the great work that you're doing out here in the field?
Thank you. Qualified Isn't Enough is coming out on September 9th, 2025. And in the meantime, on GinaRileyConsulting.com, you can go to my book launch list, which is simply getting on the email list. I'll be sharing little insights from the book and hopefully generating some excitement to purchase and use the book. It follows exactly my 9-step model of career velocity. Chapters 1 through 5 are building the UVP. Chapters 6, 7, 8 are all about resume development, LinkedIn development, doing your interview prep and your job search strategy. And then the 9th step is building a thought leadership strategy so that you constantly are sharing your knowledge and expertise and being a magnet for opportunities. So I really believe in this. And you brought up something so sweet when you were 8 years old, when your career journey, like that kernel happened. For me, I was 15. I got selected to be the only sophomore in my high school to go to a statewide leadership seminar that was the start of something that changed my life. And then the next 2 years in high school, I was part of something called the All Stars. And it was a 3-day retreat I got to go on with neighboring students in other high schools. And we were taught by these motivational speakers that traveled around the country relationship and communication skills. And it was right then that I realized I want to do that. I want to be those motivational speakers. And how my career has kind of led me to this place is I'm motivating people mostly on a one-to-one basis, but sometimes through podcasts and speaking, to inspire people to create that UVP and communicate with clarity their truth, who they are, so that they can connect with people better. And so it all started for, I was 15 or 16.
Thank you for sharing that. And I always share that's actually a part of my brand story. And it didn't become that up until the last couple of years when I had to go back and gather my receipts when my confidence was low, because it happens to all of us, right? Um,
Totally.
and it helped me to realize that one of my purpose, my mission on this earth was to be a leader of leaders, and I have been doing it since I was 8 years old. So again, thank you for sharing that, and I think it underscores the point that all experience matters. So a lot of
Hmm.
time we are trying to find what we've done since we got the one position that we really liked, not thinking back on how your experience at 8, Gina's experiences at 15, the projects that you did in college and high school, like that
Hmm.
all matters. That was a part of your
Hmm.
brand story, a part of your UVP. So thank you for pointing that out, and I hope it inspires someone to go inside the arsenal and gather all your skills and your strengths all the way back from when you were a kid, possibly.
Absolutely.
Yes, I love it.
Absolutely. And, not to over push my book, but when
Over
people
push.
actually over push chapters 1 through 5, people are thinking, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And I can't invest in a coach, whatever that looks like. I don't have the resources for that. If you got $20, you can get the book, take the UMAP for 129, and now you've got your recipe right
Yeah.
there. So start baking the cake. I spell it out in plain English how to build your UVP, and you don't have to hire a high ticket coach.
Yes, yes. A coach doesn't always have to be right in front of you as well. Some of my best coaches and mentors are people's podcasts that I listen to as well. But I get
Oh,
a
yes, and
feeling.
yours for everyone else. Oh my gosh. Your
Thank you.
podcast
Thanks.
is amazing. The amount of wealth to go back and listen to can help people create their brand stories, position themselves better as job seekers. It's all there. You just got to invest the time.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. And I'm so glad I got a chance to talk to you today and learn from you. This is a learning platform for myself and my co founders as well. When we share with guests, we're learning as well. So you have definitely added value to me and shifted a lot of my perspective on how I think about movement in the workplace. So before we end, as we ask all guests, can you share your final 5 words or just final thoughts that the audience can take away?
Oh, I'm going to align with your 5. I'm ready. Networking is key to success. Go forth
Love
and
it.
network, people.
Love it. Love it. So that I think what you also did there was give me an idea for what our next segment should be if we ever come back together, and it should be about strategic networking and networking for results. I'm going to throw that out there as well. Networking for results.
I am down for that because Candace, on my website, there's a little tab called resources. I wrote 7 articles called How Your Next Executive Role Finds You. All
Mm,
7 stories are interviews with executives who found their jobs through the power of networking, and every story is different. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier, remember that Swiss Army knife?
yep.
When we go into the market, we cannot position a Swiss Army knife full of tools. It confuses the buyer. We need to be ready with the sharp tool first, the one they need, not the one we prefer, the one they need. That's why we approach everything with humility and listening and humility, right? All of that. So Jennifer Davis is one of the 7 stories, and that's where I got that great idea is you've got to be clear on your UVP and what you can
Yes.
do for them as they need it.
Yes, yes. How does your role find you? I love it. Well, I'm gonna put a pin in it. I love it. I'm pinning it because we're coming back to talk about that because it's not about who you know, it's
Ready.
about who knows you. It is about who
Ready.
you know, but it's
You.
mostly about who knows you. So that I am 100% aligned on. Gina, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm excited for future collaborations and just having more insightful conversations with you that help transform the careers of all of those who are listening. Thank you so much for joining the 5 Minute Career Hack Podcast.
You and good luck to all those job seekers out there. We are with you, and we wish you the best.
So thank you. Take care, everybody.